Hello there, and welcome. Perhaps there's nothing to do tonight, not even to stay awake. If thoughts are moving quickly, there's no need to stop them. They can wander, the way wind wanders through trees. Tonight, we'll explore hope, not as a demand to feel better, but as something quiet and usable, like a folded map in a coat pocket and a lantern that never has to be bright. So whenever you're ready, you can simply listen, letting each gentle fact be one more soft route toward rest. Hope can be less like a mood and more like a navigation skill. In psychology, hope is often described not just as a cheerful feeling, but as a way the mind organizes the future. It's the difference between staring into tomorrow and seeing only fog and noticing that there might be a path. Even if it's faint, a skill can be practiced, repeated, and held gently, without needing perfect confidence. And in that sense, hope doesn't have to arrive all at once. It can begin as a small habit of orientation turning, again and again, toward a possible next step. Perhaps you might notice your jaw becoming unhurried, as if it has nowhere to go. And maybe hope can be like that too, unhurried, simply pointing in a kind direction. Many researchers describe hope as having two parts: pathways and agency. One well-known approach breaks hope into two simple pieces. Pathways are the mind's ability to imagine routes more than one way forward. Agency is the gentle inner fuel that helps you take a step along one of those routes. You can picture it like a map and a small match. The map shows options. The match gives just enough light to choose one. Neither has to be dramatic. Even a tiny sense of there is a way can soften the body's sense of being cornered. And maybe that's all hope needs to be tonight: a small map and a small light resting quietly together. Pathways are simply the mind's ability to see more than one route. When the mind feels trapped, it tends to tighten. It looks for the one perfect solution, the one correct doorway, and it can keep scanning long into the night. Pathways thinking is different. It allows gentle alternatives, a detour, a side street, a small footbridge, even a pause. Sometimes the brain settles not because a problem is solved, but because it senses options. Options mean room, and room is calming, like a path that bends around a stone, not fighting it, simply continuing in its own quiet way. Agency is the quiet spark that helps you take a first step. Agency isn't the same as intensity. It doesn't have to feel like motivation or excitement. It can be a softer kind of willingness, just enough to begin. And it can be very small, choosing to rest, choosing to breathe more slowly, choosing to let tomorrow stay outside the bedroom door. In this way, agency can be a gentle permission, not a push. Perhaps agency can be like warming your hands around a cup of tea, not to rush anywhere, just to feel a little steadier. Hope and optimism overlap, but hope often stays closer to goals and roots. Optimism can feel like a general belief that things will turn out well. Hope, in many definitions, is more specific and more practical. It involves a direction and at least one route toward it. Optimism is like glancing at the sky and thinking the weather might clear. Hope is like remembering you have a small umbrella and a way to get home. Both can be comforting, but hope has a particular calmness because it offers something you can do without demanding you do it right now. A forecast can change. A map can fold quietly back into your pocket. waiting until you're ready. A simple metaphor: optimism is a forecast, hope is a pocket map. The mind loves metaphors because they help complicated ideas become gentle and familiar. When you think of optimism as a forecast, you can allow it to be uncertain. A forecast is never perfect. When you think of hope as a pocket map, you can allow it to be incomplete. A map doesn't need to show everything. It just needs to show enough. In that framing, hope stops being a performance. It becomes a tool, quiet, practical, and forgiving, like a lantern that never has to be bright, only findable. People can have strong agency, but few pathways, or many pathways, but little agency. In some descriptions, agency and pathways can vary independently. Someone may feel a lot of willingness, but not know where to aim it. Someone else may see many options, yet feel too tired to begin. This can be a relief, because it means hope is not one single thing you either have or don't have. It's a pair of gentle dials, and dials can be adjusted slowly, one small turn at a time. Maybe the shoulders can soften, as if exhaling a small backpack, and perhaps one dial can rest for now, while the other turns quietly in the background. Even one alternative route can soften the feeling of being trapped. When the brain believes there is only one way forward, it can become vigilant, as if it must stay awake to guard the path. But when a second route appears, even a small one, it often changes the body's tone. The chest can loosen, the breath can slow, not because everything is solved, but because the future has more than one door. Hope can be that second door, a spare key you remembered, a footbridge you hadn't noticed. And perhaps, tonight, it's enough to know that more than one path exists, even if you take none of them until morning. Not yet can be a form of hope that doesn't demand certainty. The mind sometimes treats the present moment like a verdict. If something feels hard tonight, it can whisper, "This is how it will be." But hope doesn't need to argue with the night. It can simply make room for time. Two small words not yet create a gentle gap between now and forever. They allow the future to stay unfinished, like a page left open without pressure to complete it. Perhaps hope is the soft space between one breath and the next, where the story hasn't been decided. Micro-goals shrink the future into something the body can hold. Large goals can feel like standing at the edge of a wide ocean, not sure where to step. Micro-goals are different. They are small enough to be carried in one hand. In many behavior models, smaller steps reduce overwhelm and increase follow-through because they require less mental energy. And even when you take no action at all, simply knowing that a goal could be broken into gentle pieces can lower the mind's sense of threat, like choosing one small stone to step on instead of trying to cross the whole river at once. Softer goals can reduce pressure and keep the nervous system calmer. The nervous system often reacts not only to events, but to the meaning we place on them. A rigid goal can sound like a command, and commands can raise alertness. A softer goal sounds like an invitation. Rest a little lands differently than solve everything. When language becomes gentler, the body often becomes gentler too. Breath slows, shoulders drop, and the mind stops scanning for the one perfect outcome. Maybe there's no need to carry a heavy target tonight, only a quiet direction. Hope can sit beside tiredness. It doesn't require bright feelings. Some views of hope treat it as something that can fluctuate with context, rather than a permanent trait you either have or lack. That can be relieving. It means hope can be present, even when energy is low. It can be quiet, like a small light behind a curtain. You might feel tired, flat, or uncertain, and still have a gentle sense that tomorrow contains more than one possibility, like a hallway light left on for you, not to wake you, only to keep the space kind. Hope can be both cognition and emotion, plan and warmth. Some modern approaches describe hope as involving both thinking and feeling. There can be a mental part, imagining a route, and an emotional part, feeling even a small openness. You don't have to force either. Sometimes the thinking arrives first, one simple option. Sometimes the feeling arrives first, a soft warmth that says, "There is room." You might notice the forehead smoothing, like still water. And perhaps that smoothness is a kind of quiet hope all by itself. Writing down one gentle option can lighten working memory. The mind tries to protect you by holding problems close, as if constant attention might prevent loss. But working memory is small, and when it's overfilled, the mind can loop. A simple note, one option, one next step, can act like placing a thought on a shelf. You are not abandoning it. You are giving it a place to rest until morning. Like folding a map carefully and setting it beside the bed where it can wait. Tiny progress signals can steady motivation more than rare big wins. Motivation often rises from feedback, not huge victories, but small signs that movement is possible. A tiny signal, one completed step, one gentle choice can tell the brain, this route works. Over time, those signals build trust, and trust is calm. It turns the future from a cliff into a path, like small trail markers painted kindly, showing you that the forest does have a way through. Flexible goals support hope better than perfection goals. Perfection goals can narrow pathways because they demand one exact route. Flexible goals widen pathways because they allow detours. They say, there are many ways to arrive. That widening often softens pressure, and soft pressure helps the mind loosen its grip. A flexible goal can be as simple as be a little kinder to myself tomorrow. There are many routes to that. Perhaps hope is a path with gentle switchbacks, never rushing, still moving. Values-based goals often feel safer than performance-based goals. Performance goals can make the future feel like a test, and tests tend to wake the mind up. Values-based goals are softer. They are about how you want to be, not how you want to score. Be gentle, to be steady, be honest, be kind. They don't demand a perfect outcome. They simply offer a direction, and when the direction is soft, the nervous system often reads it as safe enough, like walking toward a warm window in the distance, without needing to arrive right now. The mind often relaxes when it senses there is more than one way through. A single path can feel fragile. If it fails, everything fails. Multiple paths are different. They turn the future into a landscape rather than a narrow bridge. Even if you never use those extra routes, the knowledge that they exist can settle the body. It's as if the mind stops standing guard at one door and finally allows itself to sit down. Perhaps hope is a room with more than one quiet doorway, and you can rest in the middle. Reframing setbacks as detours protects pathways thinking. Setbacks can feel like walls, but pathways thinking treats them as bends in the trail. A detour isn't failure. It's information. It's the map updating itself. When you reframe a setback this way, the nervous system often loosens its grip, because the future is no longer all or nothing. There is still movement, just slower, quieter, kinder. If you'd like, let the hands rest as though holding warm air, and imagine a path that curves gently around a stone. Tiny rituals can become small anchors for agency. Rituals are simple actions, repeated with meaning. They don't have to be grand. A few minutes of dim light, a glass of water, a sentence you say softly. Over time, the brain begins to associate these actions with safety and rest. In that way, a ritual becomes a pathway you can step onto automatically, even on nights when you feel tired. Like a familiar trail marker you can find by touch, even in the dark. The language of perhaps can create room instead of demand. When a sentence begins with, "You have to," the body often braces. When it begins with perhaps, the body often softens. Permission language reduces pressure, and pressure is one of the quiet fuels of sleeplessness. Perhaps you might, maybe, whenever you're ready. These phrases turn change into an invitation, and invitations are easier to accept, especially at night. Maybe the mind can loosen, the way clouds loosen and drift apart. Humans often overestimate how permanent a feeling is. Hope gently widens time. In the middle of a strong feeling, the mind can act as if it will last forever. This is a common trick of attention. What is present feels total. Hope doesn't need to force a brighter mood. It simply reminds the mind that time continues and feelings move. Even the slowest tide turns, and that sense of movement can be enough to let the body stop resisting the night. Like a tide that turns slowly without anyone pushing it. Social support can be a pathway, not just comfort. It's easy to think of support as emotional warmth only, but it can also be practical pathways, a person who helps you see options, who carries part of the map, who reminds you of routes you forget when you are tired. And even imagining supportive presence can soften isolation. The mind relaxes when it feels it is not navigating alone. Like walking with someone quietly beside you, no talking needed, just shared direction. Hope can be practiced like a skill, not hunted like a rare feeling. If hope is treated as something you either have or lack, it can feel fragile. But when it is treated like a skill, like noticing options, choosing one gentle step, letting time stay open, it becomes steadier. Skills can be practiced on good days and heavy days. And a small practice is still a practice. Like lighting a candle each evening, not because the dark is wrong, but because warmth is kind. The smallest next step can still count as a route. The mind sometimes believes a step is only real if it is big, but many models of change are built from small, repeated actions. A single step can be as simple as resting, drinking water, or choosing one gentle thought to carry. When steps are small, the body stays calm, and calm is often the soil where better pathways grow. Perhaps the chest can feel roomy, like a quiet room with open windows. And maybe that roominess is already a kind of hope. Hope often grows when the brain can imagine a next step, not a perfect ending. The nervous system tends to relax when the mind stops, demanding a final answer. Many approaches to hope treat it as forward motion, in small increments like placing one stone at a time across a stream. When a step is small, it feels doable, and the brain's prediction system can accept it without alarm. A tiny, realistic step also creates evidence that movement is possible, and evidence, even quiet evidence, can be gentler than reassurance. Perhaps you might notice the belly rising and falling in its own rhythm, like a slow tide. And maybe your next step can be just as small and just as sufficient. Micro goals can be a kinder fuel source than big, distant goals. Big goals can energize, but they can also wake the mind up. They require planning, measuring, comparing. Micro goals do something different. They give the brain a short horizon. One glass of water, one email tomorrow, one gentle boundary. These small goals still point forward, but they don't flood the body with pressure. In hope research, small attainable steps are often part of how pathways thinking stays alive. Like a candle that doesn't need to light the whole room, only one corner, warm enough to soften the shadows. Pathways thinking is flexible by design. Detours are part of it. A common reason the mind spirals is the belief that a plan must be linear, but pathways thinking assumes obstacles will appear, and it makes space for alternatives. It's not one path or failure. It's many paths and pauses. Flexibility reduces the feeling of being trapped, which is one of the quiet triggers of nighttime alertness. When options exist, the brain can stop standing guard, like a river that meets a stone and simply learns the stone's shape, flowing around it without argument. Hope can be understood as a system that changes with context. Some modern views describe hope not as a fixed trait, but as a dynamic pattern sensitive to sleep, stress, support, and even the season of your life. That means hope can dip without meaning anything is wrong with you. A dip can be information, not a verdict. And when hope is a system, small inputs matter: warmth, safety cues, gentle routines, and rest itself. Perhaps hope is like weather in a wide sky, changing quietly, while the sky itself remains. The mind often settles when it senses room, even before it finds certainty. Certainty can be rare, but room can be created. Room appears when the mind can hold more than one possibility without rushing to choose. This is one reason pathways thinking can be soothing. It expands the internal space, and expanded space can change breathing, soften muscle tone, and reduce the need to keep scanning the future, like stepping into a quiet clearing where nothing demands a decision and the air feels a little wider. Some nights, hope is simply the permission to pause. Hope is often described as forward-facing, but pausing can also be a form of wise movement. A pause protects energy, and it prevents the mind from burning fuel in circles. In a gentle frame, rest itself can be one of the pathways, and choosing rest isn't giving up, it's keeping the system supported. Many small, healthy systems survive because they know when to go quiet. Whenever you're ready, perhaps the feet can feel pleasantly heavy, as if the bed is doing the work for you, holding you without questions. Hope can coexist with uncertainty. It doesn't require a guarantee. The brain often asks for guarantees before it relaxes, but hope is not a contract. It's a stance, an orientation toward possibility. Some research and theory suggest that what matters is not certainty, but the ability to hold a future that includes options. When you stop demanding a guarantee, the body can stop preparing for the worst. Like carrying a spare key, not because you know you'll need it, but because it's comforting to know it's there. When the mind imagines multiple routes, it often reduces rumination. Rumination can feel like being locked in one narrow hallway pacing. Pacing. Multiple routes open doors. Even if you don't walk through them tonight, the doors being there can change the nervous system's tone. It signals that the future is not a single thread that must be controlled. It is a fabric, with more than one weave. Perhaps you can let those doors exist quietly in the background, while you drift, like moonlight resting on a path. Hope is often easier to feel after the brain receives small signals of safety. A mind that feels unsafe tends to narrow its focus, searching for threats and worst-case stories. When the body senses safety through warmth, a slower breath, a familiar sound, the mind can widen again. In that wider space, hope has room to appear. It doesn't arrive as a dramatic belief. It may arrive as a subtle softness, the sense that tomorrow has more than one shape. Like a hallway light left on not bright, just steady, so the house feels kind again. Agency can be tiny. It can be as small as choosing the gentlest option. Agency is often defined as the feeling that you can initiate and sustain a goal. But agency doesn't have to be heroic. It can be quiet, like selecting one small kindness toward yourself. Some nights, agency is the decision to stop wrestling the future, or the choice to let the pillow receive your head a little more fully. When agency becomes small, it becomes accessible. Perhaps you might feel that choice, like a warm ember small, but real under the soft ash of the day. Hope and optimism overlap, but they aren't the same kind of future light. Optimism is often described as a general expectation that things will turn out well. Hope is more like a toolkit. It leans on pathways and agency, on the idea that there are routes and a way to take them. Optimism can feel like looking at the weather forecast. Hope can feel like carrying a folded map in your pocket. Both can be gentle companions, but hope is especially suited to small steps. Maybe you can keep that little map near you tonight, even if you never unfold it. The brain relaxes when the future is framed as many small attempts, not one perfect try. Perfection creates tension. It suggests that one misstep ruins the entire path, but pathways thinking assumes retries and detours. In a softer frame, the mind doesn't need to be flawless. It only needs to be willing to explore. That willingness can quiet the nervous system because it reduces the feeling of a single, high-stakes outcome. You might notice the jaw unhurried, as if it has nowhere to prove itself and nowhere to rush. Hope is easier to sustain when goals are meaningful, not just measurable. Measurable goals can be useful, but they can also wake the mind into counting and comparing. Meaningful goals like feeling calmer, being a little more present, keeping a gentle promise, often carry a softer kind of motivation. Meaning gives the future a warmth rather than a scoreboard, and warmth is something the body can settle into. Like warm tea, held in both hands, not to achieve anything, only to feel the cup. Sometimes, the mind finds hope by noticing what has already survived. Without forcing a dramatic story, You can acknowledge that you've moved through many days before the brain learns from evidence, and survival is a quiet kind of evidence. This isn't about pushing yourself, it's about letting the memory of endurance sit beside you, like an old friend. In hope language, past persistence can feed both agency and pathways. Perhaps your past can be a small constellation, dim stars you can still navigate by. Social support often increases hope, even when it's remembered, not present. Hope research frequently notes the role of relationships being seen can widen the future. Yet even a remembered sense of care can help. A kind text from long ago, a teacher's gentle tone, a friend's quiet presence memory can carry social warmth forward. The nervous system can respond to that warmth as if it's here now. In a small way, whenever you're ready, maybe the shoulders can soften, like setting down a small backpack of effort. Hope doesn't need to erase heavy nights. It only needs to offer a next breath. There is a misconception that hope means feeling light, but hope can live beside heaviness. It can say, "This night is allowed," and still keep a small candle nearby. When hope is framed this way, it stops fighting your experience. It becomes a companion, not a command. Like a candle that doesn't argue with the dark, it simply glows and lets the room be quiet. Hope can be carried as a feeling, even when thoughts are tired. Some newer approaches describe hope as more than a belief. It can be a trait-like emotion set, a familiar warmth the body recognizes. That means you don't have to think your way into hope. Sometimes it appears as a gentle leaning forward inside you, or a quiet sense of possibility. And when thoughts are exhausted, an emotional tone can be a kinder place to rest. Perhaps hope can sit in the chest, like a small, steady glow with no words attached. The brain often calms when it remembers that outcomes can be flexible. Nighttime worry tends to make the future feel rigid, like a single corridor. Flexibility changes the shape of that corridor. When the mind can hold that there are multiple outcomes, and many of them are survivable, the nervous system reduces its vigilance. This isn't forced positivity. It's simply widening the frame. Perhaps the eyelids can become gentle curtains, softening the edges of the room, letting the future blur kindly. Hope is often strengthened by pathways, not promises. Promises can feel high stakes, especially at night. Pathways are different. A pathway is a route, a method, a way around a stone. Even if the route is imperfect, having a route can soothe the brain's sense of being stuck. In hope theory, the ability to generate pathways is a core ingredient of hope, and it can be practiced in small, gentle ways, like finding a footbridge in the fog, not grand, just enough to cross. When the mind is overwhelmed, hope may begin as one neutral sentence. Sometimes the kindest seed is neutral. There may be another way. This won't feel exactly like this forever. I can take one small step later. Neutral language doesn't argue with your current state. It doesn't demand brightness. And neutrality can be a doorway into a softer future frame. Perhaps a single sentence can float by, like a leaf on slow water, and the body can follow it down. Small rituals can help hope return because they give the brain predictability. The brain relaxes when it knows what comes next. Gentle rituals dim light. A familiarité. A few slow breaths create predictability. Predictability is a quiet safety signal. and safety makes room for broader thinking. Over time, that broader thinking can resemble hope, the sense that tomorrow is not only uncertainty, but also possibility. Like the same star you can find again and again, even through thin cloud. Hope can be a form of attention, noticing what is still possible. Attention shapes experience. When attention can land, even briefly, on what is still possible, one kind conversation, one small choice, one path not yet tried, the mind loosens its grip on inevitability. This does not erase difficulty. It simply creates space around it. And space is soothing, like widening a window just a little, letting cool night air soften the room. Some theories treat hope as both cognitive and emotional, two threads woven together. Cognitive elements include goals and roots. Emotional elements include warmth, courage, and a sense of lightness. These threads can trade places. Some nights, the cognitive thread is tired, but the emotional thread can still hold, and that's enough to continue. Perhaps the mind can rest, while the heart keeps a small lantern quietly lit. Holding something warm can make the future feel less sharp. The body and mind speak continuously. Warmth can soften muscle tone, slow breathing, and reduce the sense of threat. When the body is warmer and calmer, the mind is more likely to imagine outcomes that aren't catastrophic. This is not a guarantee, just a gentle nudge towards spaciousness. You might notice the hands relaxing, as if holding warm air, letting the future be a little less jagged. Hope can be quiet gratitude for one small thing that still works. Gratitude and hope often travel together. But in sleep content, gratitude can stay very small, the bed beneath you, the breath arriving, the fact that this moment is held. When you notice one small thing that still works, the mind receives a subtle message. Not everything is broken. That message can be a tender form of hope, like a gentle ember under soft ash, not trying to be bright, only trying to stay. The brain often treats imagined futures as practice runs. When you picture tomorrow, your brain isn't only daydreaming, it's rehearsing. This rehearsal can be soothing when the imagined future is gentle and varied, but it can feel sharp when the mind keeps practicing only one tense scenario. Hopeful imagery doesn't have to be bright or unrealistic. It can be as small as picturing a calm morning routine or a single conversation going more smoothly than expected. A softer rehearsal can invite the nervous system to loosen its grip, because the practice no longer sounds like danger, like letting the mind practice a quieter song, one that's slow enough to fall asleep to. Hope can be conditional, in a kind way. If this route closes, another can open. The mind often wants a promise that one plan will work, but hope can be more flexible than that. It can be a gentle conditional statement. If this doesn't unfold, I can still find another route. This isn't pessimism, it's spaciousness. It means the future isn't one narrow bridge. It's a landscape with more than one path, including paths you haven't seen yet. Like a trail marker painted simply, not commanding, just quietly pointing. Some theories describe hope as a dynamic pattern, not a fixed personality trait. Older views sometimes treated hope like something you are. Newer views often describe it as something that emerges from many inputs: sleep quality, safety cues, connection, memory, and even the stories you've been told about yourself. When hope is a pattern, it can change. That means a low hope night doesn't define you. It may simply reflect that the system is tired and needs gentler conditions. Perhaps hope is like a seed choosing its season, quiet now, still real. When the mind can hold more than one possibility, it often relaxes its grip on control. Control is sometimes the brain's way of trying to stay safe, but the future rarely allows perfect control, and the effort can keep the body awake. A hopeful frame can be less about controlling outcomes and more about expanding possibilities. When possibilities widen, the brain doesn't have to squeeze so tightly around one outcome, and the breath can begin to move more freely, like clouds parting without effort, just enough to reveal a thin crescent of possibility. A small sense of choice can be enough to reawaken agency. Agency can feel far away when you're tired, but agency doesn't require big decisions. It can begin with small choices, choosing to rest, choosing to let the lights be low, choosing to postpone the heavy questions. Even tiny choices send a signal to the brain there is still room to steer, even gently, and that signal can be calming because it reduces helplessness without asking for effort. Maybe the space between the brows can widen just a little, as if the face is letting go of a quiet task. Hope can be carried by routines that feel almost too small to matter. In many systems, small inputs accumulate: a warm drink, a familiar scent, a dim lamp, a soft playlist. These aren't grand solutions, but they can become pathways, reliable steps that tell the brain what comes next. Over time, the nervous system learns that these steps often lead towards safety and rest. Hope can live in that learning, not as a promise, but as a memory that softness returns. Like sunrise practicing in silence long before you see it. The mind often confuses uncertainty with danger, but they aren't the same. Uncertainty simply means the future isn't fully known. Danger is something else. The brain sometimes blends the two, especially at night, when imagination is vivid and the body is quieter. A hopeful stance can gently separate them, yes. The future is uncertain, and it can still include kind outcomes. When the brain allows this, it can stop treating uncertainty as an emergency, like standing under a wide night sky, where not knowing is normal and still peaceful. Hope doesn't require high energy. It can be a low-light signal. Many people think hope should feel like excitement, but that can be too bright for sleep. Hope can be quieter, more like a porch light left on, not dazzling, not demanding attention, just present. In that way, hope becomes compatible with rest. It doesn't pull you upward. It simply keeps a small point of warmth in the background while you drift. And perhaps you can let that porch light glow softly while the rest of the house goes dark. Hope can work like a cognitive compass, keeping direction without forcing speed. A compass doesn't pull you forward. It simply holds a quiet sense of direction. Some ideas about hope treat it similarly. Hope can keep a future-pointing orientation. Even when energy is low, it doesn't demand a sprint. It can coexist with slow progress, en pause, and detours. And in a sleepy context, that's a gift, because the mind can rest without feeling like it has abandoned tomorrow. Like a needle settling toward north, softly, while you stay still and warm. The mind often relaxes when it can replace all or nothing with some or some. All-or-nothing thinking can keep the nervous system alert, because it suggests catastrophe if one thing fails. Hopeful thinking often introduces a softer structure. If one plan doesn't fit, another might. If one day is heavy, another can be lighter. This isn't denial, it's flexibility. Flexibility tells the body it can unclench, because the future isn't a single brittle thread. Like choosing a softer fabric, one that bends with you instead of pulling tight. A body that feels supported can make pathways easier to see. It can be hard to imagine options when the body feels braced. Safety cues warmth, a steady breath. A familiar room can quietly widen perception. When the nervous system shifts toward calm, the mind often becomes more creative and flexible, and pathways thinking can return. In that sense, rest isn't separate from hope. Rest can be one of the conditions that allows hope to reappear. If you'd like, letting the legs settle, like drifting sand finding its own level, supported by the bed. Hope can be described as future openness, not future certainty. Certainty is rare, and chasing it can keep the mind awake. Openness is different. Openness means the future has room for more than one outcome, including gentle outcomes. Some modern perspectives on hope emphasize this openness, a stance that allows possibility without demanding guarantees. When openness is present, the brain doesn't have to keep rehearsing worst-case stories. Like a window left slightly open, letting in cool night air, without needing to know tomorrow's weather. Hope can be borrowed from small evidence, not big emotion. Hope doesn't always arrive as a feeling. Sometimes it arrives as evidence you've made it through nights before. You have learned at least one coping rhythm. You have found at least one kind person, one safe place, one calming habit. Evidence can be quiet and factual, and that can be soothing at night. It doesn't argue with your mood. It simply sits beside you, like stones in a pocket, small, real, and gently grounding. The brain's reward system responds to the idea of progress, even in tiny steps. While the details of hope in the brain are still being explored, many studies of motivation suggest the brain cares about prediction and progress. A small step can create a small signal of movement, and that signal can reduce the feeling of being stuck. The key for sleep is softness, progress that doesn't energize too much, just enough to feel there is a way, like a distant light traveling patiently, not rushing, simply arriving when it arrives. A hopeful mind often uses language that is gentle and conditional. Hopeful language tends to include words like maybe, perhaps, and it's possible. These words don't overpromise. They give the nervous system room. In contrast, rigid language can create pressure. It tries to force reality into a single shape. Gentle language is less activating. It allows the body to soften while still facing forward. Perhaps the softest word in the room is maybe. Hope can coexist with tiredness. Tiredness doesn't cancel it. Many people assume hope requires energy, but tiredness is a body state, not a verdict on the future. You can be tired and still have a tiny orientation toward tomorrow. You can be tired and still keep a small map nearby. In a dynamic systems view, hope rises and falls with conditions. Tonight, letting the body rest can be part of the conditions that gently lift the system again. Like an ember under soft ash, not bright, still warm. Sometimes hope is the feeling that you're not alone with tomorrow. Hope can come from within, but it can also come from connection, real or remembered. A supportive relationship, a kind voice, or even the memory of being understood can widen the future. When the mind remembers that help exists somewhere in the world, it often softens its vigilance, and softness makes room for pathways to appear. In that sense, connection can act like a bridge in the landscape of hope. Perhaps the arms can feel placed down, like setting down a book, while the idea of support stays nearby. Quietly, hope can be practiced by imagining 2 or 3 gentle, good enough outcomes. The mind often rehearses one storyline. If that story is tense, the body may stay awake, as if it must keep watch. A softer practice is to imagine a few good enough outcomes, nothing dramatic, just gently acceptable. A calm morning, a conversation that is okay, a day that moves at a slower pace. Multiple acceptable futures can reduce pressure because the brain stops treating the future like a single test it must pass. Like a small constellation of choices, each one faint and still beautiful. In a dynamic systems view, hope can be influenced by environment and routines. Some perspectives describe hope as a pattern that emerges from many small inputs: sleep, light, sound, nutrition, and the feeling of safety can all shape how the mind relates to tomorrow. This is comforting because it means hope isn't only a matter of thinking right, it can grow from conditions that support the nervous system. Tonight, the condition you're creating might simply be quiet, like tending a small garden at dusk, not to force growth, just to make space for it. Hope can be a low-stakes relationship with the future. When the future feels high stakes, the body can tense, as if preparing for a performance. Hope can soften that by lowering the stakes, the future is allowed to unfold imperfectly. You're allowed to learn as you go. You're allowed to change your mind. In this frame, hope isn't about guaranteeing success. It's about staying in gentle contact with possibility. Like a door that opens with a small push, not a heavy shove. Hope and meaning often travel together, but meaning can be tiny. Many theories suggest hope is connected to meaning, a sense that tomorrow can hold something that matters. But meaning doesn't have to be grand. It can be small and private, a warm drink, a familiar song, a person you care about, a quiet hobby. Small meaning is often more compatible with sleep because it doesn't energize the mind too much. It simply gives the future a gentle shape, like a hallway light left on, not to wake you, just to let you feel at home. Hope can feel safer when it's not forced into positivity. Forced positivity can create tension because it argues with what the body is feeling. A softer approach to hope allows mixed experience. A heavy day and a small light can coexist. This kind of hope doesn't deny difficulty. It simply refuses to let difficulty own the entire horizon. And that refusal can be quiet enough for sleep, like moonlight on water still there, even when the surface is moving. A gentle physical cue can help agency return without effort. Agency doesn't have to start in the mind. Sometimes it starts in the body, one unclenched muscle, one slower exhale. When the body loosens, the brain often interprets it as a safety signal, and pathways can appear more easily. A physical cue can be a doorway into hope, not as a thought, but as a shift in the system's tone. Maybe the tongue can rest behind the teeth and the jaw can be quiet again, as if the night has nothing to prove. Hope can be distributed across time. Some nights carry more, some carry less. In a systems view, it's natural for hope to fluctuate. Some nights, the future feels open. Other nights, it feels narrow. This doesn't mean you're failing. It may simply mean the system is conserving energy. When you allow fluctuations, you stop fighting the low hope moments, and that reduces inner friction. Reduced friction can be its own kind of relief, like tides that turn slowly without needing permission. One way to keep hope gentle is to keep it specific and small. Vague hope can sometimes feel like pressure, an expectation to feel better. Specific hope can be softer, hoping for one restful hour, one calm breath, one kinder morning. Small, specific hopes give the mind something it can hold without strain. And when the mind stops straining, sleep can come more easily. Perhaps a single seed of possibility is enough for tonight, resting quietly in the dark. Hope can be low volume and still be real. In many modern views, hope isn't only a loud, confident emotion. It can look like a subtle shift in attention toward a workable next step, even when energy feels thin. Some researchers describe hope as something that moves with context, rising and falling like a gentle system. Rather than staying fixed, that means a quiet, almost invisible kind of hope can still be a valid part of your inner landscape. Perhaps hope is simply the softest lantern, bright enough for one step, and no more. Pathways thinking is the mind's ability to imagine more than one route. In classic hope theory, pathways are the possible routes toward a goal. When one path is blocked, hope can be supported by seeing alternatives, detours, bridges, smaller trails. This doesn't require intense planning. Sometimes it's just the idea that another way exists, even if you haven't found it yet. That gentle flexibility can reduce the feeling of being trapped in one narrow corridor. Like moonlight on water, a second path can appear without effort, just by waiting. Agency is the spark that begins a small movement forward. Agency in hope theory refers to the felt capacity to initiate and sustain goal-directed effort. In sleep content, agency can be framed softly, not push harder, but a tiny willingness, even a micro-intention, like choosing warmth, choosing ease. Choosing one gentle thought can be a form of agency. It's less about force, more about permission. Perhaps agency is a quiet ember under soft ash, still warm, still possible. Hope and optimism are related, but they're not identical. Optimism is often described as a general expectation that good things will happen. Hope is usually more goal-linked, woven from pathways and agency. You could picture optimism as a clear forecast, while hope is the little map in your pocket that helps you move through the night. Both can coexist, but hope has a practical, navigational flavor. A forecast can be far away. A map can rest against your heart. Micro-goals can make hope feel more reachable. Large goals can overwhelm the mind, especially at night. Micro-goals, small, kind, doable steps, can support pathways thinking by reducing the distance between now and next. A micro-goal might be as simple as taking one slow breath, noticing one safe sensation, or imagining one gentle option for tomorrow. The goal isn't to solve everything, it's to keep the path visible. A long road becomes soft when you only need the next stone. Hope often changes with environment and safety signals. Many dynamic systems perspectives emphasize that hope is not purely inside you. It can be shaped by cues of safety, support, and context. When the body senses calm, slower breathing, warmer light, quiet surroundings, the mind may find it easier to imagine pathways and feel agency. In that sense, a soothing environment can be a gentle scaffold for hope. Perhaps the room itself can help hold the lantern steady. Hope can be a trait-like emotion set, not just a passing thought. Some newer models treat hope as a stable-ish pattern of emotional experience, an emotion set that includes feelings, motivation, and meanings, not only beliefs. This can explain why hope sometimes feels like a mood in the body, a quiet opening in the chest, a sense of space, a gentle readiness. It's not necessary to define it perfectly for it to be present. You don't have to name the sky to feel it overhead. Hope can coexist with heavy nights without arguing with them. A common misunderstanding is that hope means feeling bright all the time. In reality, the hope can sit beside low energy, uncertainty, or a restless mind, and still offer a tiny direction. You might not feel better immediately, yet the mind can still hold one gentle possibility. That coexistence can be soothing, nothing needs to be forced. Perhaps hope is a candle that doesn't fight. The dark only warms a small circle. A hopeful mind often makes room for time, not just outcomes. When the mind is tired, it can demand an immediate resolution. But hope can be slower than that. It can include time as an ingredient, the idea that things can change gradually. The way a room warms after a heater turns on, time allows more pathways to appear, and it allows the nervous system to stop acting like everything must be solved tonight. Like starlight traveling for years, arriving gently, without hurry. Gentle hope often feels like softening, not striving. Striving can tighten the body jaw, brow, shoulders, especially late at night. But hope can be expressed as softening, softening around uncertainty, softening around imperfection, softening around the need to control. In that softened state, the mind becomes less combative with the future, and sleep has more space to enter. You might notice a cool softness across the forehead, like still water smoothing itself. Hope can be strengthened by remembering past returns. The brain learns from patterns. If you have experienced moments when the heavy feeling passed, when clarity returned, when support showed up, those are examples of the system finding its way back. Hope can borrow from those returns not as proof that everything will be easy, but as evidence that change is possible. Evidence is often calmer than reassurance. Like a familiar path in a forest, remembered by your feet, even in the dark. Some nights, the most hopeful act is to reduce stimulation. Hope is sometimes described as future-oriented energy, but the body often needs calm conditions before it can imagine any future at all. Lower light, quieter sound, slower breath, these can be pathways, not distractions. When stimulation reduces, the nervous system can settle and the mind can stop scanning for danger, like turning down a dimmer switch until the room becomes kind. Hope can include self-kindness, Because harshness narrows pathways. Harsh self-talk tends to create tunnel vision, only one acceptable outcome, only one correct version of you. Kindness widens the landscape. It allows mistakes, detour, and learning. In hope theory terms, kindness can support both agency and pathways by reducing fear of failure, and less fear is quieter at night. Like giving yourself a wider trail where you can walk slowly without being chased. Hope doesn't have to be certain to be useful. The mind sometimes waits for certainty before it relaxes, but certainty is not always available. Hope can be more practical than that. It can function as a working hypothesis. It's possible there is a way. That small possible can reduce the nervous system's urgency because the future no longer feels sealed. Perhaps possibility is a door left slightly open, letting air move through. A flexible plan can be more soothing than a perfect plan. A perfect plan is fragile. It breaks when the world changes. A flexible plan expects obstacles and includes alternatives. This flexibility is similar to pathways, thinking it assumes detours are normal. When the brain accepts detours, it stops treating them as emergencies, and it can release some of its nighttime vigilance, like a river that knows how to go around stones without losing its direction. The body can hold a small signal of hope, even without words. Hope isn't only cognitive. It can be felt as warmth, ease, or a quiet openness. Sometimes the body finds that feeling first through comfort, through safety, through rest. If you can sense even a small warmth in the hands, it can be a reminder the system is capable of softening, and softening is where pathways reappear. Perhaps the hands can feel warm, even without trying, like holding a tiny cup of light. Hope can be held as a question, not a conclusion. A conclusion can feel heavy, like a final stamp on the future. A question is lighter. Hope can be something like a soft question the mind carries. What if there's a gentler route? Questions don't require certainty, and they don't demand an immediate answer. They simply keep the horizon from closing completely. And that openness can lower nighttime tension, like listening for a distant bird call in the dark, not rushing toward it, just noticing it exists. Hope often becomes easier when you allow imperfect progress. Perfection can make the future feel like a narrow gate, but imperfect progress creates multiple pathways, small wins, partial steps, pauses that still count. In a gentle framing, hope isn't the belief that you'll do everything right. It's the sense that you can keep moving in small, human ways, even with detours, like footprints that don't form a straight line and still arrive at morning. Sometimes hope is simply trusting that rest changes the system. When the mind is overactive, it can forget how much rest reshapes perception. Sleep supports memory consolidation, emotional processing, and the brain's ability to see patterns differently without making big promises. It's fair to say, a rested brain often sees more options than a tired one. So choosing rest can be a hopeful act, like letting snow settle overnight and waking to a quieter landscape. Hope can be strengthened by small rituals that signal safe enough. A ritual doesn't need to be dramatic. It can be the same blanket, the same dim light, the same gentle music signals that tell the nervous system it can stand down. When the body feels safe enough, the mind doesn't have to grip the future so tightly. Pathways thinking becomes easier because the brain is no longer solving for danger. Like lighting a candle at dusk, not to banish night, only to soften it. Hope can be shared across a community, even when you feel quiet and alone. Even if you're listening in silence, you're part of a larger human pattern, people resting, recovering, trying again. Hope can be understood as something that moves through groups, through stories, through care, through the simple fact that others have found routes before you. You don't have to carry the whole lantern yourself. Like many small lights on a distant hillside, seen softly through the night, a slow breath can be a pathway simple, repeatable, and always available. Pathways don't have to be external plans. Sometimes the pathway is internal, the breath, the gentle release of muscle, the steady rhythm of the body, when the chest rises and falls a little more slowly. The nervous system often receives a signal of safety, and in that safety, hope can return as quiet openness. Maybe the breath can find a gentler rhythm, all on its own, like waves arriving without effort. Hope can be small enough to fit inside one night. When hope is framed as a grand transformation, it can feel unreachable. But hope can be small enough to fit inside this one night, hoping for softer thoughts, hoping for a calmer body, hoping for a morning that feels slightly kinder. These hopes don't demand intensity. They simply give the mind a direction that is compatible with sleep, like placing a single seed in dark soil, trusting the soil to do the quiet work. A gentle future can begin as a gentle sentence. The mind often follows language. A harsh sentence can tighten the body. A gentle sentence can soften it. Something like, perhaps it's okay to rest, or maybe tomorrow can be different in a small way, doesn't force belief, it offers room. And room is where the nervous system can finally unclench. Perhaps a kind sentence is a small bridge, and you don't have to cross it tonight. Hope can end the day the way a lantern ends a walk, by being set down. A lantern is useful while you walk, but when you reach a safe place, you can set it down. Hope can be like that too. You can carry it gently through the day, and then let it rest at night. The future doesn't need to be solved in the dark. It can wait, quietly, while your body does what bodies do best, drifting into repair. Like a lantern placed by the bedside, still there, not asking for anything. Hope, in the gentlest sense, can be a folded map and a lantern that never has to be bright. Not a demand to feel better, not a performance for the future, just a quiet way of remembering that more than one path can exist, even on nights when you don't walk anywhere at all. Perhaps there's nothing required of you now, nothing to solve, nothing to hold up with effort. If thoughts drift in and out, they can drift. If your attention wanders, it can wander. Tonight can be simple, and that simplicity can be enough. If you'd like, letting the breath move slowly, as though it has all the time it needs. Letting the shoulders find their natural place. Letting the jaw soften. And letting the whole body be held by the bed, by the room, by this quiet moment. May your mind feel less crowded. May your body feel more supported. And may the smallest light of hope stay nearby, without asking you to carry it. Whenever you're ready, you can let the lantern rest and drift into sleep.